Hey there guys, Tommy14 here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 2012 Monaco Grand Prix qualifying session. Let's go back in time. The year was 2012, the first 5 races saw 5 different race winners from 5 different teams. You love to see that, don't you, in Formula 1? With a shock result in Spain the previous race, with Pastor Maldonado winning for the first time for Williams since 2004 with Juan Pablo Montoya, the championship standings saw Vettel and Alonso equal on points. So here's how the first 5 races looked. Nico Rosberg won Mercedes' first Grand Prix since returning to F1 in 2010 at the Chinese Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher seemed to be looking closer to Nico throughout the first few qualifying events of the season. Alonso won a staggering Malaysian Grand Prix, and McLaren looked to be the quickest car, but Red Bull still the team to beat. Monaco would be Red Bull's opportunity to take a hold on the championship lead, with Sebastian having won there 1 year prior. But before the race is the small matter of qualifying. Monaco is 2.1 miles of largely unaltered roads through the Principality. It's notoriously difficult to overtake here. You know, with a street track where the average speed being upwards of 100 mph just inches away from metal barriers. But yeah, it's a boring track to drive apparently. Anyway, point is, because it's so difficult to overtake on race day, it makes Saturday's qualifying all the more important. More so than usual. Q1 got underway, and for the second year running, Sergio Perez has a crash at the Principality, this time at the swimming pool chicane exit, and nowhere near the severe accident he had 1 year ago. The session was red flagged. Then, when the session got back up and running, Sebastian Vettel opted for a set of super soft tyres, as his best time had been set on softs, which had only been good enough for P16. Same with Raikkonen. He too opted to switch for super soft tyres, because his soft tyres left him in danger in the dropout zone. Hulkenberg set the best lap of the session on super softs, but his team was playing about with different strategies preserving tyres for the race. This wasn't overly important. Q2 starts and Nico Rosberg looked to set the pace in the early stages with a 1:15.022, tantalisingly close to being the first to break into the 1 minute 14s. Sebastian Vettel, meanwhile, had an eventful session after only 6 minutes into Q2. He came into the pits and reportedly claiming the front of his Red Bull was jumping like a rabbit. For once, Sebastian didn't feel comfortable in his Red Bull, leaving him vulnerable to the rest of the pack. Felipe Massa stroked his Ferrari to the top of the timing sheets, finally seeing into the 1 minute 14s, the fastest time we had seen all weekend, with Alonso 2/10ths back. Jenson Button struggled, and so began the bad streak Jenson would have in the European portion of the season. It is important to note the gap from P1 to P16 was less than a second. Qualifying 3, the final stage of qualifying, the top 10 shootout for pole position, with the difference from P1 to P10 being so marginal all weekend. This was set to be one of the most unpredictable qualifying sessions. The qualifying session is unofficially split into 2 sections. You do your fastest run at the start, you come into the pits, and then you go back out right at the end to try and set your fastest lap for pole position. In the first 5 minutes of the session, Sebastian Vettel and the 2 Ferraris were the only cars not to go out on track, as they previously in Q1 and Q2 used more super soft tyres to get them through. Also, strategy was taken a part of things for the race. Any other track, and this is normally quite a sound strategy, but here at Monaco, it's all about building up your lap time. You want to be on the circuit as much as you can to build up to that ultimate lap for pole position. Vettel and the 2 Ferraris didn't have that. So as a result, if you don't nail what few laps you have and you end up qualifying further back for the race, you've automatically made it harder on yourself than you need to. Monaco is about track position. Hamilton and Rosberg set themselves out for their first runs on super soft tyres in pursuit for pole position, while other drivers either had to or chose to run with a used set. After the first initial runs, the order saw Rosberg on provisional pole. Grosjean in a brilliant P2, setting a time 1.6 seconds quicker than his teammate Raikkonen on a used set of tyres. P3 was Mark Webber, followed by Hamilton, Schumacher, Maldonado and Raikkonen. As the top 5 came into the pits, the 2 Ferraris and Red Bull of Sebastian Vettel came out on track, with Sebastian coming out on a slower soft tyre. At this point it became clear that Vettel wasn't going to attempt a lap, coming straight back into the pits with his engineer telling him to save tyres. This was a time where the top 10 had to start on the tyres they qualified on in Q3. Therefore, in not setting a lap time in the final stage, you have the choice of tyres what to start on. Midfield teams would usually use this if they found themselves in the top 10, usually leaving only 6 cars in the final stages of qualifying to actually set a lap. What a snooze fest that would be at the trackside. On the final runs of the session, Nico Rosberg was still on pole, with just over a minute left of the session, looking to get Mercedes' first pole at Monaco since 1955, with Juan Manuel Fangio. But with the checkered flag waving, Mark Webber crossed the line with a 1:14.381, almost 2/10 faster than Rosberg. The only drivers on track who looked a threat to Mark Webber were Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, and a late charging Michael Schumacher. Lewis Hamilton crossed the line 2/10 off Webber. Then comes Michael Schumacher with a scintillating lap, beats Mark Webber by just 0.08 of a second to secure the fastest time in qualifying. Rosberg improves on his own time, but it isn't enough to overcome Mark Webber. So Michael Schumacher, fastest in qualifying around Monte Carlo. What would turn out to be his final Monaco showing, he goes quickest. Notice how I refrained from the word pole position? Well, that's because the previous race in Spain he ran into the back of Senna. Bruno, that is, not Ayrton. Well, not this time anyway. Which landed him a 5-place grid penalty for the race. Schumacher would go on to retire from the race, but the last glimmer of Schumacher magic had been sprinkled onto the streets of Monaco, a place where he previously won 5 times before. And there's still proven that Michael Schumacher, on his absolute finest day in 2012, was a match for the top guys still. Well, when Fernando Alonso was in a subpar Ferrari, Sebastian Vettel didn't even get to set a lap time, and the McLaren's not quite getting in their laps. Yeah, Schumacher could beat them all on his best day. Nevertheless, he did still beat Mark Webber and Nico Rosberg. And Nico won a championship, didn't he, in the end? So, not quite the Schumacher of old still? Let me know what you think down below. You can see Schumacher's lap on YouTube. There's something about it where, especially the team radio at the end, you could just tell how much it meant to him to still be up there with the best. Thank you for listening to this, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and until next time, take care.